Alright, I'm going to start out with this tutorial function calendar, and it's going to show you how to build a function and with a switch statement, as well as how functions can call each other. So here's what the finished page will look like. So there's going to be some stuff about the calendar. Here's what our calendar is going to look like. And then we're going to say, what heading do you want? So we can customize our heading. When you program, it's really important to have an image of what you want the program to do. This is really nice because you're looking at the finished program, so that's really sweet. What most programmers do is they just sketch it out on a napkin or a piece of paper, just make a raw sketch, and to get in their mind at what their client wants or what they want. And it doesn't have to be pretty, but you need to lay some of the pieces out of what you want. So if you want to go out and get set up, you can go out to Function Calendar Demo Start. And notice that I zipped this file up. That's because D2L and a lot of other programs, like some email programs, they strip out the JavaScript. They see it as a security risk and they strip it out. So if you click on this link, you'll get a zip file. And then you can save it to your flash drive. And when I first open up the file, this is what I see. For those of you in web dev, you can look down in the bottom and you can see that I have 0 errors and 0 warnings to start with. So you might want to keep your eye down on your HTML validator. And then open up your file in your text editor. And this is the output. When you run the setup program, this is the output you should see that comes from the function. So here's a quick code view walkthrough. Notice my doc type up on top, so the browser knows what type of file to look at. It's an XHTML. And then on the top of every text file that you write, you want to do a comment block. And this isn't just for classes, but this is for professional work too. And you want to You want to say what the file name is to help you stay organized, as well as what the file's going to do. So if somebody comes in and looks at this code right away, they could say, oh, that's what this is supposed to do. And then a written revised, and what did I leave off of here? Pretty important. Yeah, so put my name in. And then my revision date. And what I did. So somebody can come in here, and once a program gets around a while, this revision thing turns into the most important part, because you see the whole revision history. You see when somebody changed it, who did it, and what did they do. This gets very important because when you have revisions, you bring in bugs. So if a program isn't working, you can look at their revision history and say, oh, whatever they changed, that's where I want to look for bugs. Okay, we come into the head, we look at our title, and then we start our script. And notice I put the C data in so the HTML validator will stay out of our code. Now, this is a really smart thing to do. I write my function, and you all learned this last week using the keyword function, display calendar. And where does this block of code right here go as the browser reads the page? What happens to this block of code? Yep, it sets it aside. And in the classroom here, you can imagine it being put up on that whiteboard over on the right-hand side. That's like our temporary variable. So if I was going to be drawing and stuff, I would write display calendar parentheses up there on the whiteboard. Now, I do this all the time with my functions, is I write a really simple output statement, which is basically going to say my calendar. And that's going to show me that this function is working. That's the end of my script. I put a little style in there to make it look nice, catch everybody's attention. In this class, you're not required to use the style, but it sure makes your pages look a lot nicer, a lot more friendlier. Remember, you're always selling cereal. You're not selling the cereal, you're selling the cereal box. Now, I haven't introduced this before, but here's the NoScript tag, and the NoScript tag will, anything that's in here will display if the user has JavaScript turned off. Why would anybody want to turn JavaScript off? Holy mackerel.
Because it's full of bugs.
Nope, it's not full of bugs. It's full of vulnerabilities. Yeah, JavaScript is a security risk. As more and more people find out about it, more and more people are turning JavaScript off. So why do we use it to teach you programming fundamentals if it's such a security risk? Yeah, it's easy. You do some cool things with it. We're all still using it. I mean, you know, I have JavaScript turned on all the time. So it's a small fraction of people that turn it off, but you have to be ready for those people. So you put a NoScript tag, and then you put in a message. Like I just say, we recommend that you turn JavaScript on, and then say NoScript. This does bring out a good point, though, is anything on the page that is essential information should be in your HTML, not generated from your JavaScript. Your JavaScript should be an extra layer, so if people do turn it off, it's still there. And then after I do all this text, I start my script up again, and here you can see I call my display calendar that's stuck up in the temporary memory. And then I finish off with another paragraph, my body, and my HTML. So where are we going to do most of the work in here? Where do you think? What line numbers? Yeah, 15 through 18. We're going to work up here inside our function and leave the rest of the page alone. So this is where we're focused, because this is we're going to build up this function. So down here in the body, when we call it, it's going to do the work for us. But the rest of this stuff we'll just leave alone. So let's get to it. Now, parameters allow our program or our function to process information. And where you put your parameters in is right inside the parentheses. Notice the difference. Parentheses are the smooth brackets, and curly braces are the ones with the little pointed stuff. I'm amazed at how many people don't know what a parentheses is. But once you see the difference, then it gets to be a lot easier. So in your function, put in a variable, and this is declaring a variable called this month. This is like saying var this month. And then we're going to use this variable inside the document right. So go ahead and modify your function by adding in a parameter and then adding the parameter with a concatenation operators inside your output statement. When you run this, it's not going to do anything because we have to change where we call it. So scroll down into the body of your page, look for that second script block, and we're going to say display calendar, and we're going to put some Spanish in there, febrero. Boy, you not only learn JavaScript, but you'll learn Spanish in this class too. At least one word of it. Also, I'd like it to point out to everybody how to spell calendar. Calendar has an E in it. So make sure you put that in your memory banks. Now, as soon as you put this in, when you run the program, what the browser is going to do is it's going to take febrero, the string, and it's going to assign it to this variable, and it's going to print it out inside this when it prints out this month. So febrero is going to go into this bucket, this variable, and it's going to print out here. So go ahead and run the page, and you should see febrero come out on the output. So when you run your page, you should see the dynamic output. And if you change your call down in the body to February in English, you should see the change when you do your page. All right, let's get to work now. Let's really build this calendar. So here we have our heading for our calendar. And then we're going to do a document write. And who remembers what these things are? First of all, what are these called? This ampersand, NBSP, semicolon. Non-breaking space, and what's the technical term in HTML? They're called special characters, or the really super name for them is entity. If you're learning XML, that's called an entity. So that's going to be a non-breaking space. So this is just how we're spacing things out. Now, what I would recommend is typing out this line with the break. Again, you notice this is a string. It's going to print out exactly like it is. and then copy it and paste it 4 or 5 more times, and then just go in and retype the numbers. It'll be a lot quicker that way. And I just want to show you what it's going to look like. Oops. Yeah, where is it? I don't have any output here. You're going to have to wait and see what it's going to look like. All right, that's pretty exciting. So here's the code. Okay, now we want to start the days, the months on different days of the week, so I'm going to go into the switch statement. You know, before I do that, I think we should take a break. Everybody get their calendar to work? Now, earlier I talked about having a function with several parameters. So here we're going to declare this month, comma, and we're going to declare a new variable called start day. And this is going to allow us to start our calendar on a different day. So go ahead and add in your display calendar, add that start day in. And again, I want to emphasize you're declaring the variable. So you're making a spot in memory to stick things. And then go down into your body, where the script is in your body. And here we're starting febrero. We're starting it on the second day. Now, because we're programmers, Sunday is 0, Monday is 1, and Tuesday is 2. So this is going to start on a Tuesday. I want you to think like programmers. So make those 2 changes, and nothing really will happen because we're not using start day yet. But I want you to get your program set up. And then here's what the code looks like. Oh, here we're going to use a switch statement. Now, normally I really encourage everybody to type these things out, but because we haven't covered the switch statement yet, and there's a lot of code here, I'm real comfortable with you grabbing the switch statement, just copy this code, and go down and copy it and paste it into your code. When I did the programming fundamentals, I talked about the different decision-making parts in a program. Does anybody remember what metaphor I used for the switch statement? It had to do with shoes. A woman picking out a pair of shoes. Do you remember that? There was a circle of shoes on the floor and there was a woman trying to pick out which pair of shoes. So what's happening here is the switch is the woman, and she's saying, okay, I have to find out of all these shoes, I have to find a match. So if the start day is 2, she's going to go, is it this one? Does that match 2? No. Does it match this one? No. How about this one? Yes, it matches 2. So then I'm going to go down and do my calendar, and you'll notice that I have some extra non-breaking spaces here on this extra line, and so my first day is going to start under the T for Tuesday. And if you look at each of these, as I go up, here's Sunday. This is the one we started with. Here's Monday. It's indented a little bit more, so it's under the M. This is under the 2, the T, this is under the W, this is under the T and for Thursday, and under the F for Friday. So you can see I've added a lot more non-breaking spaces. You see how Friday has almost a whole row. Here's Saturday, and here's unknown. I start back where we were. So here's my default. So I go from 0 to 6, and then this is if they type in another number that I don't know about. This is like my safety net. So go ahead and copy that code, paste it into your program.
It's like not all the months have 31 days. Does that stick for each one?
Okay, not all the months have 31 days. Well, you're going to make my life complicated, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm just wondering, like, we get to do a different switch for like the ones that are 30 or like February or just 28.
Yeah, we'd have to set up different for that. Yeah, yeah. So you can see that right away how our program can get more complicated when we go into the real world. Absolutely. This will also give you a really good feel of how complicated programming can get because of all these little nuances. And don't forget about leap year. So yeah, we can get really complicated. But basically, we want to just show how functions work. So we're going to stay away from that for today. Now, I'm glad you're thinking that because you're thinking like a programmer. You're saying, oh, wait, what about this? What about this? Because your clients won't think of that, but you have to. Well, they'll think about it when you're all done and you're proud of your work, and they'll say, oh, wait a minute, what about leap year? No, we'd probably have to do a different logic pattern. Oh, this code is going to go inside your display function, your display calendar function. Yeah, so do you see where I have my document right, where I'm putting out my header, and then I put in my switch right underneath it. So that replaces that block that we worked on. This also shows really good programming development. We started with a simple document write. Then we added in a parameter and tested it. Then we tested just one calendar, got it to work, and then we went into a complicated where we started the calendar at different places with a switch statement. So you see how we expanded. We didn't jump right into a switch statement where about 5,000 things can go wrong. We built it up a little piece at a time. So here's our switch statement. We come in with start day, which we designated as 2, and then start day was compared to 0, to 1, down to 2, and it says, oh, this is what we want. So this is the code it ran. It ignored this code here and the 0 code. I'll just point this out too. At the end of our block of code, we did a break which says, okay, don't look at it anymore, just leave the switch statement. So again, we passed in our month and the column we want to start on. And here's what your output should look like. Here's Febrero, and it starts at 0, 1, and here you can see it starts at 2. Yeah, we do have a problem here with 31, don't we? Everybody get it to work. Now, the power of parameters, this is a key concept in all programming languages. Make sure you understand how we're declaring variables in a parameter, and then we're initializing them when we call that function. So here, look what we can do, and this is the power of a function. Now, this is in your body. This is down in your body, so you already have display calendar Febrero, right? So you can just copy and paste and say display calendar December, start on the first column, start on Sunday. Display calendar January, start on Monday. And I'm using smart data here. I'm doing the columns in order so I can test them all. And do I have a 7 in my switch statement? No, I don't. It only goes 0 to 6, 7 days. So this is testing my default. So July should start on position 0. Now this is the power of a function because look at, instead of having all of that code over and over, we only need that code once and we customize it with parameters and we keep calling this code over and over again. Also, when we fine-tune our calendar to accommodate the number of days and the leap years, then we only have to write it in that one function. We don't have to write it for each of these times that we use it. So go ahead and add that code and see how many calendars you get. You should get all those calendars. Pay particular attention to where July starts. Now, we can have functions call other functions. This is really cool. So go to the head section, and you're going to do this right after the display calendar function. So look for that close curly. Make sure you're after that close curly where it says end of display calendar. Keep track of your curly braces so you know where the end of things are. And set up variables to hold the user's input. Here, I'm just going to show you the code. So here you can see the closed curly for my display calendar. And then I'm starting a new function called getUserInput. Put in your two curlies so you know where they're at. And I strongly recommend putting in that comment. That really, really helps. I do this all the time now. And then here we're declaring a variable called userInput. We're calling the prompt function. We're saying, what heading do you want? I put a default in there, testing, 1, 2, 3. That stores into user input. I do the same thing. I say user day input, prompt, what day should the calendar start? And I give the user examples. And then I say variable start day is going to start at 0. And then before I write any more code, I debug this and I output it onto the screen. So I say, what did the user input and what was the user day input? So now go back down in your body and say get user input. So we're going to call the user input function. So put it in front of the calendars so you don't have to scroll all the way down through those calendars. And you can see it right away. So get user input. Make sure you spell it the same way you wrote it. Following the naming convention, we want to start with lowercase, use camel case, and are we sending any parameters in this call? No parameters. So we're using the empty parentheses. It doesn't matter if you have space between the parentheses or not. I put spaces just for readability. And of course, don't forget your semicolon. And this is what you should see. So when you run it out, do you see right away? You see the debug. So your brain says, oh, this is something I have to check out. You can see the user input in this case was testing 1-2-3. And our user day input was Monday. And then our calendars printed out. Everybody get that? All right. So we got our debug statement. So we're going to do another switch. I'll show you where to put this in a minute. But look what we can do with a switch. We take our user day input that was passed into the function, and this is a great function that comes with JavaScript. We switch it to lowercase. So we only have to test one thing. And then we do our cases, and here we check for sun, which is what we asked the user to type in, but they might have typed in Sunday. And notice I don't have to check for uppercase S because I already changed everything to lowercase. So we're saying, okay, whatever the person typed in, does it match this one or this one, sun or Sunday? If it does it match Mon or Monday? If it does, do you see what we're doing? We're saying, okay, the start day is 0. The start day is 1. Do you see how we're doing this? Look at Tuesday. I got pretty smart. Human engineering. I checked for 2, 2s, and Tuesday spelled out. Here's Wed and Wednesday. What's another one I could have checked for here? How about Wednes? Oh, what's another one I could have checked for on all of these? How about M? I didn't think of it till now. M, T, W, T, H. So think like human if you can. And then here's our default. We don't know what they typed in. It was something gibberish. And then here's the code. So I'm looking at my day input. And if it matches this, then I assign it that number. And then I break, which takes me out of the switch. You see where the break fits in? So either one of these is going to do this code, and then it's going to break out. If it doesn't match, it's going to keep on going down and check for this match, check for this match. Do you see how the switch is working? Again, we'll do this more next week, but it's nice to get a little introduction to the switch. And then at the end of the switch, I call our original function that we wrote earlier today, display calendar, user input, and here's the start day that I figured out from my switch. All right, so where is this code going to go? This code up here, where is this going to go, this switch statement? I would copy this whole block, and where do you want to put it? Put it right after your debug statement in, what's the name of that function again? Was it get user input? So put it right after the debug statement. And again, this is a lot of typing, so just copy and paste it into your code. Yes, it has to be inside the curly brace. Look how good I am. So here's how you track this down, is you put your breakpoint right here on get user input, and then you ask yourself, what happens next? And you click right here on the next, and you step through. So this is going to jump up to my user input, run that code, and then that's going to call display calendar, run that code. It's going to display my calendar. Then it's going to come down and display all these other old calendars that we did earlier. But can you see now how a function could call another function? Also, now I'm over on the right side of Firebug. If you click on the stack, then you can see all the functions being used. So here you can see here's my web page, and here's my get user input, and then that called my display calendar. So you see how I'm getting deeper and deeper into my stack. This is what on the whiteboard I have all those arrows pointing everywhere. This is a prettier picture. So we started here on the web page. It called this function get user input, which called display calendar, and that's where we stopped. Here's the finished file if you want to get the final part, and so you can see how all these relate together. Make sure you understand what goes in the heading and what goes in the body. So you should now be able to write functions that take multiple parameters. You should have a good feel of how the switch statement works, although we're going to see that more in the future. You're going to see how to call a function that calls another function, so you did that. And you got a great example of program development, doing things a step at a time and then testing them and expanding from that. I also got you all using Firebug by stepping through and looking at the stack. You now know a really great computer term called the stack. And that's your list of functions that you're working through.